Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 24 hours. We have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about another massive drone strike that took place during the previous night. In this video, for example, we can see how the Russians attacked the capital of Ukraine, the city of Kyiv, with a significant number of drones. A lot of explosions were recorded during the previous night. The Ukrainian sources during the previous night were publishing a lot of videos from different points of the city of Kyiv, and mainly the videos, as you can see, were provided by just civilians. And this is very important episode in the special military operation, because the most important, we don't see the work of Ukraine air defense, and furthermore we see that civilians were allowed to publish all these videos, because in the previous phases of the special military operation, the Ukrainian authorities were very unpleased with videos that were published by different civilians. And sometimes all these videos ended, for example, with different criminal investigations from the Ukrainian authorities side. But now we see that the Ukrainians most likely allowed civilians to publish all these videos without any consequences. And that night wasn't the only night during the previous several days when the Russians attacked the different towns and cities of Ukraine. For example, the previous wave of attack took place in the area of the city by the name of Odessa. We have lots of videos. There were two waves of attack. The first wave took place on the night between the 19th and the 20th of March. The second wave of attack took place between the nights of the 20th and the 21st of March of 2025. There were also lots of attacks, lots of explosions, and we also see complete absence of Ukraine air defense. So the next wave of attack took place on the nights between the nights of the 21st and the 22nd of March, but during that night the main explosions and the main strikes took place on the territory of the city by the name of Zaporozhye. So we see that the previous night was the fourth night in a row when the Russians were bombing and attacking massively the cities and very important cities of Ukraine. And now the question, what the Russians are trying to show us with all these attacks? The complete absence of Ukraine air defense. Maybe the Russians are trying to show, first of all, the Ukrainians and Ukrainian authorities and Zelenskyy himself, that currently you are completely unprotected, and if we continue bombing and attacking Ukraine, sooner or later you're gonna face complete collapse, not just of Ukraine itself but also of Ukrainian authorities. But what is the purpose? What's the reason of all these things? And we believe that the main reason of all these massive drone attacks all over the entire territory of Ukraine that have been taking place since the 19th of March is upcoming negotiation process that is going to take place tomorrow in the Saudi Arabia. And according to information we have, if you remember, tomorrow on Monday, Ukraine will present the US in Saudi Arabia with a list of objects that Putin cannot strike. These technical negotiations will be led by Defense Minister Rustem Umerov. So once again, tomorrow Ukraine will Ukraine will provide the United States of America a list of energy objects that Russia shouldn't attack. This is a very important list, and this is a very important part of the negotiation process, and basically this is something like a turning point in the entire special military operation, because most likely Ukraine will ask not to attack energy facilities, different power stations, and many other objects. But the thing and the main benefit, the main thing of this negotiation process is not just that Ukraine can ask Russia not to attack something. Most likely tomorrow Russia will provide their own list on objects that Ukraine can't attack, and we believe that most likely the Russian Federation will include the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant as a part of this list. And then Ukraine will have just two options. First of all, to accept the list provided by the Russians. But if Ukraine accepts the list provided by the Russians that includes the Zaporozhye nuclear power station, then Ukrainians will be forced basically to accept the reality that the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant is a part of the Russian Federation. Because as soon as Ukrainians accept this list, Russia will of course launch this power station in full strength, and they will start supplying regions, the southern regions of Ukraine, with electricity, with cheap electricity from this power station. If Ukrainians decline or reject the list of the Russian Federation, then most likely the ceasefire would be broken, and then the United States of America are going to be very upset with the situation, and most likely they will be forced to press the Ukrainians to increase the pressure on Ukraine, and probably by cutting off military help and probably the sharing with intelligence information. And this situation can lead to unpredictable consequences, like another Russian offensive operation completely hidden from the Ukrainian military authorities. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground, and first we're going to talk about the Sumy direction, where we have several changes. It's not already like Sumy direction, it's probably already Sumy direction. First of all, and the most important, is that according to several resources, pro-Russian resources and neutral resources, the Russians managed to cross the border with the Sumy region in another place and take under control up to 10 or 15% of the settlement by the name of Vladimirovka. This is another village on the Ukrainian side of the border. As for now, we don't have any proofs that can confirm this, but obviously this is very interesting. Furthermore, the sources reported that Russian aircraft to carry out intensive bombing strikes in Sumy Oblast. Over the past few days, about 100 air strikes have been carried out in just two regions using FAB 500, FAB 1500 and FAB 3000 glide bombs. Sumy Oblast is preparing for a full-scale operation. So that was stated by several pro-Russian resources. When talking about the Sumy region itself, we have interesting updates, and the most important are coming from the settlement of Kyiv. This territory used to be considered as a contested area because several mappers adjusted the territory of the settlement in the Russian favor without any geolocations. But the previous day, on the 22nd of March, we received a lot of videos that confirm Ukrainian control over the settlement. Furthermore, Ukraine complete control over the settlement. We have lots of videos how the Russians were hunting and attacking the Ukrainian soldiers on the territory of the settlement, how the Russians were destroying. And the thing is that we believe that the settlement is in the complete Ukrainian control, but it's more like the situation that Ukrainians were caught in cauldron. It's not like the situation that we can find some Russian soldiers to the south along the main supply roads from the city of Kyiv, from the village of Kyiv. It's like the situation when the Russians established complete FPV drone control over this territory. Furthermore, we have a lot of reports about the situation. For example, several pro-Ukrainian resources reported that the situation for the Ukrainians on the territory of Kyiv is critical. The problem is that the Russians established complete FPV drone control, and the Ukrainians from the territory have no possibilities to get even food. Even drones can't bring enough of food to supply forces there. So we believe that due to the situation, most likely the Ukrainians during the next several days will make another attempt to break through the encirclement and to leave and abandon their positions on the territory of Kyiv. But as for now, we will keep this territory's area under complete Ukrainian control. Now let's move further. Another important update is coming along the border. According to different mappers, the Russians managed to secure the forest that goes along the border with Ukraine. So this territory, as you can see, according to neutral mappers, were recaptured by the Russians. And this is very important because now, and we believe that the Russians are going to continue advancing further deep inside of the territory of Ukraine with the purpose to take this dense network of forests and to get as close as possible to the settlement of Yunakivka. So this might be like something like maneuver that the Russians are planning to carry out in the very near future. Furthermore, we continue receiving videos and updates with a significant number of trophies that were captured by the Russians as a result of offensive operation, and we continue receiving updates about the significant number of losses that Ukrainians suffered during their occupation of the city of Sumy. The sources are saying that the Ukrainian losses in this area were critical, and most likely the Ukrainians will not be able to restore their positions in full strength because they lost indeed too many units. Now let's move to the border with Belgorod region, and we continue receiving updates about significant clashes along the line of combat contact. The Russians continue bombing and attacking the Ukrainian positions, but according to information we have, during the previous 24 hours, the Ukrainians haven't managed to improve their positions at all. Now they control just several tree lines and just several fields along the border, which most likely would be abandoned by the Ukrainians in the very near future. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the city of Kharkiv. Today we got report that Zelenskyy came to Kharkiv, where he had meeting with was the Minister of Defense of Ukraine, where he had a meeting with Syrsky, and where he had a meeting with the Commander-in-Chief of the Armored Forces of Ukraine. And according to information we have, they were discussing and talking about the situation, but several military experts believe that they were talking about the situation when very urgently the Ukrainians would be forced to fall back and to abandon their positions in some regions. The sources are saying that Zelenskyy came to understand whether the Ukraine army is ready to abandon positions, let's say in Donetsk region and maybe in Kharkiv, if a negotiation process will be finished, and if the one of the paragraph of the negotiations and talks would be like Ukraine would forced to fall back from several regions. So this is like some rumors about the situation. Furthermore, when talking about the city of Volchansk, today we got report that the Russians managed to improve their positions. We haven't been receiving anything from this area for a very long period of time. In this video we can see how 2 Russian stormtroopers were clearing this building in the eastern part of Volchansk. So just a regular update from this territory. We haven't been receiving once again for a very long period of time anything from this area, but for now we see some small changes. Now let's discuss the situation in the northern Kupyansk direction. We have a lot of changes. From one side, the Russians continue advancing in the direction of the settlement of Kamenka, Novovasilievka, so in the direction of the border with the Russian Federation. And the Russians continue improving their positions on the Ukrainian side of the river Voskol. For example, today we got another video where we can see how the Ukrainians were FPV droning the Russian positions in this area with FPV drones. So this video took place exactly in this place, and based on this video we have adjusted the map. We have colored some territories in the Russian favor. Furthermore, the Russians continue attacking the Ukrainian positions further in the northwestern direction in the vicinity of the settlements like Novoshvinovka and many other villages like Kolodezhnya further in the northwestern direction, where the Ukrainians have their some positions with munitions and so on. So the Ukrainians, most likely this means that the Russians are planning to intensify their activities exactly in this area. From the other side, we continue receiving reports that Ukrainians continue their counterattacks in the southern and the southwestern part of this foothold. And during the previous 24 hours, according to different sources, the Ukrainians managed to restore some positions they lost during the first phase of the Russian offensive operation on the Ukrainian side of the river Voskol. So we have adjustments on the map in the vicinity of Zapadne, and according to information we have, the Ukrainians restore control over the southern outskirts of the settlement of Sinkovka. So we see that there are very heavy clashes, but for now there is just clashes for the initiative. Now let's move further and let's talk a bit about the city of Toretsk. During the previous 24 hours, the Russians managed to improve their positions and to restore control over the northern part. Ukrainian sources published videos how they were bombing the Russian units in this area. And the most important is that this video was published by the units of the 42nd Mechanized Brigade. And the thing is that this 42nd Mechanized Brigade used to be located in the area of Sudzha. But after several clashes, several battles, this brigade lost its combat capabilities. And now we see that this brigade was redeployed from the city, from the Sudzha direction in the direction of the city of Toretsk. So we see that the Ukrainians, since the end of the battle for Sudzha, managed to redeploy forces in this area. And now we expect another intensification of actions from the city of Toretsk toward the city of Konstantinovka. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the South Donetsk direction, where the Russians, probably after a very long operational pause, for the first time managed to improve their positions in the pocket between the settlement of Sribne and Andreevka. So this is the situation by the end of the 21st of March of 2025, and according to information we have, during the 22nd of March, the Russians improved their position significantly, and they took several fields and 3 lines in the complete control. And we have video that confirm this. In this video we can see Ukrainians that attacked the Russians that landed in this area. Furthermore, several neutral mappers improved the Russian position significantly in the same direction. So now we see that the Russians are trying to cut these pockets to maintain the lines, and the most important, to shorten the lines before further offensive operation in the direction of the Dnipro region, which most likely is going to take place very soon. Once again, tomorrow is very important negotiation process, and tomorrow the Ukrainians once again would be forced to make a very important decision whether to let's say reduce their artillery activities in the area of Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, which will allow the Russians to start using this power plant in the full strength, or they will reject any ceasefire, and then it's very difficult even to understand how the situation will be finished. But if Ukrainians reject, most likely this is going to be a signal both to the Russians and to the Americans that the war is going to escalate in the very near future. And as for the Zaporozhye direction, according to information we have, during the previous 12 hours, 24 hours, the Russians managed to improve their positions in the vicinity of the settlement by the name of Lapkova, but as for now without complete control. The Russians are advancing, the Ukrainians are forced to fall back, but the clashes still continue. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds you we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching, subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day.